Alright, I got both frame rails here, and what I've done is I lined these up on the table. I kind of squared them off. I made sure both ends, when they were lined up, the reference marks on both of these lined up, so basically everything was the same. And I made one reference mark here when they were both. Kind of like that. When everything was lined up, reference mark across that. Now what I did is I had the original line when the IRS was set up, and this was the straight through, basically 1.5 inches above the mount on the subframe. This was the center line right here, which would be the center line of this. So what I did is, once you have that line, I decided I'm going to bump it up 1/4 inch just to give me a little bit of wiggle room. Move that line over and then hit it on the center, and that's dead center where both the bends have to, or where the actual bend has to be, which is this piece, which will be probably something like that when it's all said and done. So what I got to do is transfer these 2 marks pretty much to here, and just kind of just like that. What it'll be is you'll line, I don't know if you can see that mark right there on the paper, and then I'll go 1 inch each way, and then I just did a reference here to show, just to make sure when I cut this, I'm cutting on the side I should. First thing is you want to set the table at 0. Obviously right now with a concrete floor it's sitting a little crooked, so set the protractor to 0. And what I'm looking for is 6 degrees. So alright, 602, that's close enough. And after that, then I have to set up and look down the top. Then what I did, hopefully you get some light here to see this, is I lined up the blade with the pointer here, and that point's going to hit just where that mark's at. So go ahead and start cutting and see what happens. You can see the cut, it's pretty much the same on both sides of that line. It might be a hair off, but that's usually a good sign. So now I'll finish these cuts out and then move on from there. See what happens. Set that at 0 and I'm shooting for 24. $23.7, so I'll take that. Plus, got a little bit of cleanup work to do still. So that works. Just got to do one more, and then this thing will be ready to go. All right, I'm gonna explain kind of what I got going on here. After the frame rails were cut, I didn't want to weld this portion up here because if something was a hair off, either in here or anywhere, I left this as my out. So these weren't welded. I put all this stuff together, and now basically that's where they're at. So if I would have pulled those up and welded them, they would have been at just a hair too far down. Let's see. What I got going on here is a piece of I-beam steel right here. And what I have is I have two F-clamps holding the 45s. And when you clamp these down, it pretty much puts both these pieces here on the same plane. So they're both flat with each other. And then what I did is back over here, I used these F-clamps, used a heavy piece of channel, clamped into that so the channel would want to pull these down, and then I used this car jack as an adjustment to get everything close where it needs to be. So this is where it's at as of now. Next thing is to tack these two joints down here on both sides, pull the rails back off, weld them out, put them back on here, square them or parallel them up back here. I'm not so much worried about, the only thing I'm worried about down here is they're sitting flush with the top and kind of flush with the sides. I don't know if you can see that, but the stock frame rails, they're bowed out on both sides. You can see this one's kind of pretty bad, where when the corner lines up here, that rail bows way out. So when these get attached to the frame, what I'll do is I'll tack them up top, and then I'll use one of the clamps to squeeze this frame rail in and tack it. Then put the gusset plates over both sides, the top, and then the bottom. So next will be welding it up. Then I can pop the IRS under it and make the mounts for that, and then hopefully put her back on the ground. Still have to figure out the suspension for back there, but oh well. Alright, took a little bit of tweaking to get it where I needed it, but it's good to go now. Take them out one by one, clean them up, put them back in just so I don't have to take this whole thing apart. I can pull one rail off, weld it up, put it back in, clamp it down, and I have to take this whole thing back down. With these I did the same thing as the other ones. Tacked inside off the corners, that way when I come in here to open these up, with the cutoff wheel to get the gap where I need it. I can weld to here, come over to this side, weld to here, then come in and cut these tacks out to open these up, and everything will be welded so it's not going to move anywhere. But that's pretty much it. And now that I look at these, the hard bend and the easy bend aren't that close together. So these might have been able to get mandrel bent, but I don't know. I think these were 50 or 60 bucks for these two pieces of steel versus 500 for two bent ones. I don't know, whatever. And there's the gaps to weld. About a 50 thousandths, 55 thousandths gap, 1/8 inch 11 gauge carbon steel.